promised to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah.
In a word, they think it's a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Warning for the January 6th protesters. Oppose it.
So to recap, we're still in concepts of a plan.
During the campaign, you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain.
He's going to come after those with birthright citizenship.
You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, of course, he was lying when he said tariffs weren't going to negatively impact the economy and ultimately the consumer.
Tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow.
I mean, this is a man that lied over 30,000 times on record during his first term. Did you actually think just because they call him Orange Jesus that he had actually found Jesus? Now, President-elect Donald Trump sat down with Kristen Welker for his first network TV interview since winning the election. And to his credit, he did a decent job of pissing off about everyone on the political spectrum. He upset the most conservative of his cult following by saying that he would not ban abortion medication, fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, or order the prosecution of his political opponents, but let's hold on that one because he soon contradicted himself, saying later in the interview that members of the House Select Committee on January 6th, quote, committed a major crime and they should go to jail.
For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
So you think Liz Cheney should go to jail?
For what they did.
Everyone on the committee, you think
I think everybody, anybody that voted in favor.
Are you going to direct your FBI director and your attorney general to send them to jail?
No, not at all. I think that they'll have to look at that.
Before telling Welker that he would pardon rioters from the Capitol attack on his first day in office.
You promised to pardon those who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Are you still vowing to follow through with that promise?
We're looking at it right now, most likely, yeah. I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
Now, it's with that we pivot for a moment. Whether this alleged mandate he's been given in the narrowest of victories supports him pardoning these people. According to the most recent Ipsos poll, voters vehemently oppose it. In fact, voters think pardons for January 6 protesters is a, quote, terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Most, upwards of 64%, are opposed. Just 1% want Trump prioritizing these pardons. 33% think that the January 6 protesters were demonstrating patriotism, whereas the majority think it was an insurrection, because it was.
In a word, they think it's a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Pardoning for the January 6 protesters. Oppose it. 64%, about 2/3 of Americans oppose it. Just 30% favor it. And more than that, this Ipsos poll asked, should he prioritize it to be like the first thing he does when he gets into office? Just 1% say it should be Trump's top priority. So in a word, it's a terrible, terrible idea. I guess that's two words, and then idea is a third word in there for Trump to pardon the January 6 protesters. Even among Republicans, it's only a slight majority. Of course, usually Trump gets, 80, 90% among Republicans. In this case, he's getting less than 60% on the idea of pardoning the January 6 protesters. So no, voters really dislike it. How about this? Americans strongly dislike the idea of these pardons for the January 6 protesters.
Yeah, when you see numbers like this, it's not just on party lines here. There's sort of bipartisan condemnation of the idea. Why?
Why? Well, what's a word to describe the January 6 protesters? Patriotism. Patriotism comes in at just 33%. I think a lot of those who want those folks to be pardoned believe that they were patriotic in their actions on January 6, 2021. But voters don't see it that way. How about insurrection, which is a word a lot who don't like the January 6 protesters say? Insurrection, 53%. The majority say that the actions on January 6th was, in fact, an insurrection. So the idea that there's opposition to pardoning them makes a whole heck of a lot of a sense when the fact is most folks oppose the actions of the January 6th protesters, and most of them thought that they were taking part in an insurrection, which, John, is a very, very strong word. And yet the majority of Americans here, 53%, say that is a word to describe the January 6th protesters.
Yeah, and when you look at this when you look at it right here, you still see 64% oppose it. How then did Donald Trump get elected?
Yeah, this is, I think, the most interesting little nugget here, right? Which is Donald Trump tells you what he's going to do, and then he goes ahead and does it. So take a look here, which was, will Trump try and pardon the January 6th protesters? This was a poll that was taken before the election, and the vast majority of voters believed that he would. 81% 81% said that he would try and pardon most of them. Just 19% said no, he would not. And of course, this 81% includes folks who are opposed to the idea of pardoning those January 6th protesters, yet they still voted for Donald Trump. I think what's going on here, John, is pretty simple, which is folks knew he was going to do it, and they just really didn't care all that much. Yes, they were opposed, but it was low down on these sort of list of important issues for them. There were issues that were more important. The economy, for instance, was more important. The idea, essentially, that Joe Biden's approval rating was only about 40%. Most voters thought the country was going in the wrong direction. So they were willing to look past some of the actions that they thought that Donald Trump would do in office, actions that they didn't like, for the things that they thought that he would do that they would like. And so they were willing to vote for him, even though they didn't like the idea and they thought he was going to do it anyway.
That's just an interesting number. 81% thought he would do it. 64% opposed it. What that tells you, people just didn't care.
People just didn't care. Donald Trump does a lot of things voters don't like, and they just don't care. And I think Trump knew that, and that's why he said it.
In keeping with things people voted for and aren't going to get, during the campaign, Trump proposed tariffs of 10 to 20% on all imports, and of course 60% on goods from China. But when asked during the interview whether he could, quote, guarantee that Americans won't pay more under those tariffs that he on numerous occasions promised would, quote, fix the allegedly disastrous economy. Economy, by the way, so disastrous that we just had record-breaking Black Friday sales. But I'll spare the vein on my head the strain from talking about that. And this was his answer, right?
I want to delve into one of your signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation.
This even after Trump claiming he won on two things: the border, which, by the way, he killed bipartisan legislation, and groceries, which every major economist in the country said will go up if Trump is to impose his tariffs.
It's going to create some winners and some losers, to be fair. But I do think that overall, it's going to benefit the entire whole of the United States of America. And I think that the overarching inflation is going to be mitigated by the benefit that we're going to receive by some of these trade offsets. So, look, and I think that Trump was successful in getting Mexico to help in the Remain in Mexico policy through his, threat of tariffs. I think that in a lot of cases, these tariffs are mostly meant to try to bend these foreign governments into the will of the United States. So they're allies to us in some of these efforts.
And he has.
You think that with all these different cross currents that were, tariffs were announced, or on day one, he's going to try and do some of these things.
Yeah, but did you read what he announced and why? I think this is very important.
Yeah, with immigration and fentanyl. And
immigration and fentanyl.
I got it.
So what are you saying?
But with all these, I'm just wondering, and with, and Scott Bessent said he's going to get the tax cuts extended and do the no tax on tips, do all those things. Don't a lot of things have to go right for us not to reignite inflation and scare the bond market? And wouldn't you, I'm surprised the bond market it's very strange, the 10-year yield keeps going down because it's supposed to be at 5% by now from fear of Trump.
No, think of this.
Up and down the scale, from Walmart-sized conglomerates to small businesses, they're already warning that they may have to raise prices.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Walmart, which is the world's biggest retailer, tells us it is worried that higher tariffs under the Trump administration could lead to higher prices for consumers at a time when many households are still feeling the effects of lingering inflation. And those warnings from retailers are prompting some shoppers to take action now.
I just restocked all of my K-Beauty, J-Beauty makeup.
This morning, TikTokers are warning their followers of possible price hikes for favorite products.
If you were planning to make a big purchase in 2025, say a new car, a computer, a washing machine, a refrigerator, something like that, I would urge you to make that purchase now.
Or risk paying higher prices if tariffs go into effect.
And while he's bound to take credit for the economy he's about to inherit again, watch how fast he passes the buck when those prices go up.
I can't guarantee anything.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.